How long have you been kissing my husband in the office I helped him build? Amara's voice was low, barely above a whisper, but it shattered the air like glass. The glass door to Marcus's office was ajar, 3 inches between the life she thought she had and the betrayal she was now witnessing. Through that narrow space, sunlight poured across the polished concrete floor, catching the gold thread of Kayla's blouse as she leaned over Marcus's desk. Her Marcus, locked in a kiss too intimate to be a mistake. His hands gripped Kayla's waist like she was his anchor. Her auburn curls framed his face like a portrait Amara never asked for. They didn't see her, not at first. She stood motionless, the lunchbox in her hand trembling. Jerk chicken and coconut rice, once a gift of love, now a cruel joke. Then Kayla looked up and saw her. She didn't flinch. She smiled. Before we continue, comment below what country you're watching from. We love hearing from our global family. And if this is your first time here, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share more gripping stories of betrayal and resilience. Enjoy listening. The lunchbox in Amara's hands felt heavier than it should. Its contents, jerk chicken and coconut rice she'd spent the morning perfecting, suddenly a foolish gesture. Atlanta's midday sun blazed through the glass facade of Marcus's tech startup, casting sharp reflections across the polished concrete floor. Amara's heels clicked with purpose, her tailored blazer a stark contrast to the casual coders hunched over laptops in the open-plan office. She was here to surprise her husband, to steal a moment from his relentless schedule as CEO. The thought of his smile, rare these days, had buoyed her through the morning traffic. But as she approached his office, the glass door ajar by a mere inch, her world tilted. Through the sliver of space, she saw them. Marcus, her Marcus, with his broad shoulders and that familiar navy suit, stood pressed against his desk. And there, perched on its edge, was Kayla. Her Kayla, the woman Amara had mentored 5 years ago when she was just a nervous intern with big dreams. Kayla's auburn curls spilled over her shoulders, her fingers curled around Marcus's neck as their lips locked in a kiss that was anything but fleeting. It was hungry, unapologetic, the kind of kiss that spoke of months, not moments. The sunlight caught the glint of Kayla's earrings, flashing like a warning signal Amara couldn't unsee. Her breath caught, a sharp, silent gasp that burned in her chest. The lunchbox trembled in her grip, the plastic handle biting into her palm. She stood frozen, rooted to the spot, as the office hum, keyboards clacking, a distant phone ringing, faded into a dull roar. Employees glanced over, their eyes darting away just as quickly, complicit in their silence. The betrayal wasn't just in the kiss, it was in its brazenness, performed in a glass-walled office for all to witness. Amara's pulse thundered, her mind racing to reconcile the man she'd married with, the one now gripping Kayla's waist like she was his lifeline. She'd known Marcus was stressed, late nights, board meetings, the pressure of a Series B funding round. But this? Kayla, the woman Amara had spent hours coaching, teaching her to navigate the cutthroat world of corporate ambition, had woven herself into Amara's marriage like a thief. Amara remembered Kayla's eager questions, her gratitude over coffee meetups, the way she'd called Amara her role model. The memory twisted like a blade. How long had this been going on? How many times had Kayla smiled at her, knowing she was stealing her life? Amara's eyes locked on the company logo etched into the glass partition, its sleek lines mocking her with their promise of innovation, of trust. Marcus had built this empire with her support, her savings, her encouragement, her nights alone while he chased his dreams. And Kayla, with her sharp mind and sharper ambition, had been there too, rising from intern to chief of staff, always at Marcus's side. Amara's stomach churned as fragments of the past 6 months clicked into place. Marcus's late meetings, Kayla's lingering presence at company events, the way their laughter had started to sound too familiar. She pushed the door wider, the faint creak cutting through the air like a gunshot. Kayla's eyes flicked up, meeting Amara's over Marcus's shoulder. No shock, no scramble to pull away. Instead, a slow, deliberate smile curled Kayla's lips, her gaze steady, almost defiant. She leaned into Marcus for one final lingering kiss before easing off the desk, her blouse slightly askew, her confidence unshaken. Marcus turned, his gray eyes, once the spark of Amara's world during late-night study sessions in college, now cold, unreadable. He didn't flinch, didn't stammer. He just straightened, his hand brushing his tie as if preparing for a boardroom pitch. "Amara," Kayla said, her voice smooth, almost amused. "You're here early." The words landed like a slap, casual, as if Amara had interrupted a scheduled meeting. Marcus cleared his throat, stepping away from the desk, his posture infuriatingly composed. "It's not what it looks like," he said, but the lie was hollow, his tone lacking even the pretense of remorse. Amara's throat tightened, her voice trapped behind a wall of rage and hurt. She wanted to scream, to hurl the lunchbox at the glass wall, to shatter this perfect, sterile office in the illusion of her marriage. Instead, she stood taller, her chin lifting despite the tremor in her hands. The lunchbox felt like an anchor, grounding her to the woman she'd been that morning, a devoted wife, a successful event planner, a black woman who'd carved her place in a world that rarely made space for her. Now that woman was crumbling, but Amara refused to let them see it. Not yet. "How long?" she managed, her voice low, each word a shard of glass. Marcus exchanged a glance with Kayla, a fleeting, intimate look that stabbed deeper than the kiss. 6 months, he said finally, as if confessing to a minor oversight. 6 months. Amara's mind reeled, flashing to the company retreat she'd planned in Miami, where Marcus and Kayla had stayed late to review contracts. She'd thanked Kayla for her help, admired her red dress, and even laughed at her jokes. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a violation of every trust Amara had extended, every sacrifice she'd made. Kayla smoothed her skirt, her smile unwavering. "We didn't mean for you to find out like this," she said, her tone dripping with false sincerity. Amara's eyes burned, but tears wouldn't come. Not here, not in front of them. She took a step back, the lunchbox still clutched tightly, its weight a reminder of the life she'd thought she had. The office buzzed faintly beyond the glass, but the world felt silent, suspended in this moment of ruin. Marcus opened his mouth, perhaps to offer another weak excuse, but Amara's glare silenced him. She wasn't ready to hear more lies, not yet. Her heart pounded with a question she couldn't yet voice. Would she walk away quietly, or would she fight? The answer lay somewhere beyond this glass cage. But as she turned toward the door, one thing was clear. She wouldn't let them erase her. Amara's hand lingered on the glass door, her fingers trembling against the cool surface. But she didn't push it shut. She wouldn't retreat, not yet. The air in Marcus's office felt thick, charged with the weight of betrayal and the audacity of Kayla's lingering smile. Amara's pulse roared in her ears, drowning out the distant hum of the startup beyond the walls. The lunchbox, still clutched in her other hand, was a tether to the life she'd walked in with. A life now splintered by the sight of her husband and her former mentee locked in a kiss that still burned behind her eyes. She straightened, forcing her voice to steady, though each word felt like spitting out thorns. 6 months? She repeated, her gaze boring into Marcus. "You've been doing this for half a year, and you thought I wouldn't find out?" Marcus leaned back against his desk, his navy suit pristine, his expression maddeningly composed. "Amara, let's not make this a scene," he said, his voice low, the one he used to close deals or calm investors. "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness." The lie was so flimsy it almost insulted her. His gray eyes, once her anchor during late-night talks about their dreams, now flickered with something closer to irritation than guilt. Kayla, standing by the desk, adjusted her blouse with deliberate slowness, her auburn curls catching the sunlight. "Honestly, Amara," she said, her tone light, almost patronizing, "you're blowing this out of proportion. It's not like we planned to hurt you." Amara's chest tightened, a surge of fury threatening to break her composure. Kayla's words were a masterclass in deflection, the same calculated charm Amara had once admired when she'd mentored her through pitch meetings and networking events. 5 years ago, Kayla had been a nervous intern, soaking up Amara's advice like a sponge, her gratitude effusive. Now that same woman stood here, dismantling Amara's marriage with a smile that said she'd already won. Hurt me? Amara's voice was low, dangerous, each syllable carved from the rage bubbling inside. You're sitting on my husband's desk, kissing him in front of his entire company, and you think I'm overreacting? Kayla's smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed, a glint of challenge in them. We didn't mean for you to see this, she said, stepping closer, her heels clicking on the polished floor. But let's be real, Amara. You and Marcus haven't been on the same page for a while. Everyone can see it. The words landed like a punch, echoing doubts Amara had buried deep. Nights when Marcus came home late, their conversations reduced to logistics, the spark dimming between them. But to hear it from Kayla, wielded like a weapon, was a different kind of violation. Marcus cleared his throat, stepping forward as if to mediate. Amara, we need to talk about this calmly, he said, his hands raised in a gesture that felt more dismissive than conciliatory. This thing with Kayla, it just happened. We didn't set out to betray you. His choice of words, thing, happened, stripped their affair of weight, as if it were a spilled coffee rather than a 6-month deception. Amara's gaze flicked to the lunchbox, the jerk chicken and coconut rice now a bitter reminder of her naivety. She'd spent hours that morning cooking, hoping to bridge the growing distance between them. Now, that effort felt like a cruel joke. How long have you been lying to me? She asked, her voice sharper now, cutting through the sterile air. Marcus hesitated, exchanging a glance with Kayla that was too intimate, too conspiratorial. It was a look that spoke of shared secrets, late-night whispers, moments Amara hadn't been privy to. Since the Miami retreat, he admitted finally, his tone clipped, as if the truth were an inconvenience. The retreat. Amara's mind flashed to palm trees, champagne toasts, the event she'd meticulously planned to boost Marcus's company. She'd seen Kayla there, radiant in a red dress, laughing with Marcus over cocktails. Amara had called her a lifesaver for helping with cleanup. The memory twisted, souring in her gut. Kayla crossed her arms, her posture relaxed, almost bored. Look, Amara, I know this is a shock, but maybe it's for the best, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. You and Marcus, you're not the power couple you used to be. He needs someone who gets his world, his ambition. The implication was clear. Kayla saw herself as that someone, a better fit for Marcus's glittering tech empire. Amara's fingers tightened around the lunchbox, the plastic creaking under her grip. She wanted to hurl it, to watch it shatter against the glass wall, but she held back, her dignity a fragile shield. Marcus stepped closer, his expression softening, but it was too late for sincerity. We can work this out, Amara, he said, his voice almost gentle. Let's go home. Talk this through. No need to make it messy. Messy. The word grated, as if her pain were an inconvenience to his perfectly curated life. Amara's eyes darted between them, Marcus with his calculated calm, Kayla with her smug assurance. They stood together, a united front, while she felt like an intruder in her own marriage. She took a step back, her heels steady despite the storm inside. Work it out, she echoed, her voice cold, each word deliberate. You think I'm going to sit down and negotiate my humiliation? Kayla's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, a crack in her armor, but Marcus only sighed, as if dealing with a difficult client. Amara, don't do this, he said. You're upset, I get it, but let's be adults here. The patronizing tone was the final straw, igniting something fierce within her. She turned toward the door, her heart pounding with a clarity she hadn't felt moments ago. This wasn't just about a kiss, a betrayal. It was about the life she'd built, the trust she'd given, the woman she'd been for them both. As she reached for the handle, Kayla's voice cut through, sharp and taunting. You can't just walk away, Amara. This is happening, whether you like it or not. Amara paused, her back to them, the lunchbox heavy in her hand. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. Not here, not now. Amara's heels echoed in the quiet of her apartment, each step a deliberate attempt to outrun the image of Marcus and Kayla. Their smug faces burned into her mind. The lunchbox sat abandoned on the kitchen counter, its contents untouched, a relic of a morning when she still believed in her marriage. She sank onto the emerald green sofa, the city's skyline a hazy blur beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Her fingers trembled as she opened her laptop, driven by a restless need to understand how her life had unraveled so completely. Marcus's words, 6 months, and Kayla's taunting confidence gnawed at her, demanding answers. She wasn't ready to confront them again. Not yet. But she could dig, peel back the layers of their betrayal. Her email inbox glowed on the screen, a digital lifeline to the truth. Amara had access to Marcus's company account from years ago, when she'd helped manage his startup's early events. She hadn't touched it in months, trusting him to handle his empire. Now that trust felt like a trap. She scrolled through folders, her heart pounding as she stumbled on a thread labeled Client Referrals. The emails were between Kayla and a rival event planning firm, Elite Occasions. Amara's breath hitched as she read Kayla's words. Amara's stretched thin with her projects. I recommend redirecting to Elite. They're more reliable. Attached were contact details for 3 of Amara's biggest clients, including a fashion brand she'd spent years cultivating. The timestamp stretched back 6 months, starting just after the Miami retreat. The realization hit like a cold wave. Kayla hadn't just stolen her husband. She'd been sabotaging her career. Amara's company, Vibrant Visions, was her pride, built from late-night sketching event designs and charming clients with her creativity. Kayla had sat in on those meetings, taken notes, learned Amara's strategies, only to weaponize them. Each email was a calculated strike, designed to erode Amara's reputation, while Kayla played the loyal mentee. The Miami retreat flashed in her mind. Kayla in that red dress, laughing with Marcus, offering to help with cleanup. Amara had thanked her, blind to the snake in her midst. She slammed the laptop shut, her chest heaving. The apartment, with its vibrant art and carefully curated furniture, felt like a stage set for a life that no longer existed. She needed air, perspective, someone to anchor her before she drowned in rage. She grabbed her purse and headed to Brew and Beat, a bustling coffee shop downtown where she was meeting Nia, her best friend and a PR strategist with a knack for cutting through bullshit. The shop's warm lights and jazz hum greeted her as she slid into a booth across from Nia, whose sharp bob and piercing eyes radiated readiness for battle. "Spill it," Nia said, pushing a latte toward Amara, her voice firm but laced with concern. Amara recounted the scene in Marcus's office. The kiss, Kayla's smirk, Marcus's indifference. Nia's jaw tightened, but when Amara revealed the emails, Nia leaned forward, her fingers drumming the table. "That little viper," she hissed. "I heard whispers at a tech mixer last month. Kayla cozying up to Marcus, people joking about their chemistry. I didn't tell you because I thought it was gossip. I'm so sorry, Amara." The apology stung, but Nia's anger was a lifeline, a reminder that Amara wasn't alone. "It's not just the affair," Amara said, her voice low, raw. "She's been stealing my clients, Nia. My biggest accounts handed to Elite like I'm some amateur." She pulled out her phone, showing Nia a screenshot of the emails. Nia's eyes narrowed as she scrolled, her lips pursing. "This isn't just personal," she said. "Kayla's playing dirty to boost herself in Marcus's world. She's not just his side piece. She's positioning herself as his equal, his partner." The word partner twisted in Amara's gut, conjuring images of Kayla at Marcus's side, closing deals, stealing her life. Nia leaned back, sipping her coffee, her mind clearly racing. "You built Vibrant Visions from nothing," she said. "You poured your soul into Marcus's startup, too. And this is how they repay you?" "Hell no." She set her cup down with a clink. "I know a blogger tech bit who'd eat this up. Kayla's been flaunting her chief of staff title like she's untouchable. One post about her ethics, or lack thereof, could shake things up." Amara hesitated, the idea of going public daunting. Her pain was private, raw, but the thought of Kayla's smug face faltering was tempting. She stared at the latte, its foam swirling like her thoughts. The emails were proof, not just of betrayal, but of a calculated campaign to diminish her. Kayla had learned Amara's playbook, her charm, her hustle, and turned it against her. Marcus, with his late nights and distracted glances, had been complicit, maybe even encouraging it. The realization hardened something in Amara, a spark of defiance flickering beneath the hurt. She wasn't just a scorned wife. She was a woman who'd built a career, a life, and she'd be damned if she let them dismantle it. "I'm not ready to go nuclear yet," Amara said, her voice steadier now. "But I need to know everything. How deep this goes. What else they're hiding." Nia nodded, her eyes gleaming with purpose. "I'll dig too. Tech circles talk. Someone knows more." Amara felt a flicker of hope, the first since she'd walked into Marcus's office. The city hummed beyond the coffee shop's windows, alive with possibility. She wasn't ready to fight openly, but she was done being a victim. The emails were just the start. What else had Kayla and Marcus buried? And how much would it cost them when she brought it to light? Amara's fingers danced across the sketchpad, her pencil sketching a runway bathed in virtual reality projections. A vision for a charity fashion show that could redefine her career. The vibrant chaos of her office, walls plastered with colorful event designs, fabric swatches pinned to a corkboard, felt like a sanctuary, a place where she could reclaim control. The sting of Kayla's emails and Marcus's betrayal lingered, but Amara channeled it into her work, her mind sharp with purpose. She was meeting Mrs. Thompson, the head of Luxwear, a fashion brand she'd nearly lost to Kayla's sabotage. This pitch was her chance to prove she wasn't the overwhelmed amateur Kayla had painted her to be. Mrs. Thompson arrived, her silver hair swept into an elegant bun, her eyes assessing as she surveyed Amara's office. "I've heard good things about elite occasions," she began, her tone clipped. "But your reputation precedes you, Amara. Let's see what you got." Amara's heart raced, but she flashed a confident smile, guiding Mrs. Thompson to a sleek monitor displaying her concept. A runway where holographic models mingled with live ones, synced to a pulsing soundtrack. "This isn't just a show," Amara said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "It's an experience. Luxwear's commitment to innovation, supporting local charities." Mrs. Thompson leaned forward, intrigued, but her brow furrowed. "Elite's pitch was strong. They mentioned you've been stretched thin." Amara's breath caught, the barb a fresh wound. Kayla's email, that damning lie about her being unreliable, had reached Mrs. Thompson. Her pulse quickened, but she refused to falter. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, leaning in, her eyes locking with the older woman's, "I built vibrant visions from a single client to a name that books six-figure events. If I'm stretched, it's because I pour everything into my work. The elite's just riding my coattails." She clicked to a slide showing testimonials from past clients, her voice gaining fire. "This show will put Luxwear on every blog, every social feed. I'm not just offering a service. I'm offering a legacy." Mrs. Thompson's lips twitched, a hint of a smile. "You've got fire, Amara. I like that." Amara held her breath as the woman flipped through the proposal, her pen tapping the page. "Elite's cheaper, but their ideas feel recycled. Yours don't. You're hired." Amara exhaled, a rush of triumph flooding her. She'd clawed back what Kayla tried to steal, not with anger but with brilliance. As Mrs. Thompson signed the contract, Amara's phone buzzed. Marcus. She ignored it, savoring the moment. But the vibration persisted, a reminder of the battle still raging. Later, alone in her office, Amara answered the call. Marcus's voice was smooth, authoritative, the tone he used to close deals. "Amara, we need to talk logistics. It's time to move forward. You should start packing." The words hit like a slap. His assumption that she'd leave their shared condo infuriated him. In the background, she heard a faint laugh. Kayla's, unmistakable, a taunting melody that set her teeth on edge. "Packing?" Amara said, her voice cold, sharp. "You think I'm just going to walk away from our home because you decided to screw your chief of staff?" Marcus sighed, exasperated. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The condo's in my name. You know that." Amara's grip tightened on the phone, her nails digging into her palm. The condo, their haven of late-night talks and shared dreams, was another thing Marcus had maneuvered out of her reach, citing tax benefits years ago. Now he wielded it like a weapon. Your name, sure, she said, her tone biting. But my money's in those walls, Marcus. My savings helped you buy it when your startup was just a pipe dream. She heard Kayla murmur something, too low to catch, but the intimacy of it fueled Amara's resolve. I'm not going anywhere, she said. You want me out? You'll have to fight for it. Marcus's voice hardened. Amara, be reasonable. Kayla and we're moving forward. You need to accept that. The casual cruelty of it, the way he paired himself with Kayla as if Amara were a footnote, made her vision blur with rage. She ended the call without another word, her heart pounding. The office around her, with its sketches and swatches, was a testament to her strength, her hustle. She wouldn't let Marcus or Kayla erase that. But the call had cracked something open, a realization that this wasn't just about love. It was about power, about who controlled the narrative of her life. She stood pacing to the window, the Atlanta skyline sprawling before her. Kayla's sabotage, Marcus's arrogance. They thought they could push her out, diminish her. But winning back Mrs. Thompson was proof she could fight. Her mind raced, replaying Nia's suggestion about the blogger, the possibility of exposing their affair. It was a dangerous move, one that could backfire. But the thought of Kayla's smug smile faltering was intoxicating. Amara's reflection stared back from the glass, her jaw set, her eyes fierce. She'd built vibrant visions from nothing, supported Marcus through his rise. She wasn't the one who'd break. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Nia. Got a lead on more dirt. Kayla's been cozying up to Marcus's investors. Call me. Amara's lips curved, a spark of defiance igniting. Kayla wasn't just playing with her marriage. She was playing with Marcus's empire. And empires could fall. Amara tucked the phone away, her mind already turning to the next move. She needed more than a client win. She needed leverage, something to make Marcus and Kayla regret underestimating her. The city pulsed below, alive with possibility, and Amara felt a shift within her, a hunger not just to survive but to conquer. Amara's heels clicked with purpose across the marble floor of Denise's law office, the Atlanta skyline a glittering backdrop through the towering windows. The weight of Marcus's ultimatum, to pack up and leave their condo, still burned, but Amara's triumph over Mrs. Thompson had kindled a fire in her. She wasn't running, not from her home, her career, or the fight brewing in her chest. Nia's text about Kayla's scheming with Marcus's investors had lit a fuse, and Amara was ready to arm herself. Denise, a black woman with silver streaks in her braided hair and a reputation for dismantling powerful men, sat across a mahogany desk, her eyes sharp as she flipped through a file. Let's talk about what you're up against, she said, her voice low, commanding, like a general briefing for battle. Amara recounted the scene in Marcus's office, the emails exposing Kayla's sabotage, and Marcus's demand that she vacate their condo. Denise's pen tapped the desk, her expression unreadable until Amara mentioned the condo's title and Marcus's name. He planned this, Denise said, leaning forward, her gaze piercing. I pulled records. Marcus transferred joint assets, your savings, equity from early startup days, into his company's accounts over the past year. It's a classic move to starve you out in a divorce. Amara's stomach twisted, the betrayal deepening. Her money, her sacrifices for Marcus's dream, had been weaponized against her. He thinks he's untouchable, she said, her voice tight. He and Kayla both. Denise's lips curved into a thin, determined smile. They're not. Marcus markets himself as the perfect CEO, family man, visionary, an affair with his chief of staff, plus financial manipulation. That's a PR nightmare. She slid a document across the desk, a draft petition for divorce citing adultery and asset concealment. We file this, demand a forensic audit of his company. His investors will hate the scrutiny. We use that to leverage a fair split. Half the condo, half the equity you helped build. Amara's pulse quickened. The plan bold but daunting. Going public with her pain felt like exposing a wound. But the thought of Marcus squirming under pressure was a salve. How far can we push this? Amara asked, her fingers tracing the document's edge. Denise's eyes gleamed. As far as you want. He's betting you'll fold quietly. Prove him wrong. The words ignited something in Amara, a resolve to reclaim what was hers. She nodded, her jaw set, but a flicker of doubt lingered. Could she take on Marcus's empire without losing herself? Denise seemed to sense it, softening her tone. You're not just fighting for money, Amara. You're fighting for your worth. Don't forget that. Later, Amara met Nia at a dimly lit bar, its neon glow casting shadows across their booth. Nia's laptop was open, a draft blog post on the screen, its headline stark: Startup CEO's Affair Threatens Empire. Nia's fingers hovered over the keyboard, her eyes fierce. "TechBit's ready to run this," she said, her voice low. "I've got dirt. Kayla's been pitching herself to Marcus's investors as the real brains behind his success. She's angling for a board seat, using their affair to lock it in." Amara's breath caught, the audacity staggering. Kayla wasn't just stealing her husband. She was rewriting Amara's contributions to Marcus's company, erasing her from the story. "That's why she went after my clients," Amara said, piecing it together. "She's building her own empire on my ruins." Nia nodded, her expression grim. "She's been cozying up to investors at private dinners, dropping hints about taking over if Marcus falters. The blog post will call her out. Unethical conduct and conflict of interest. It'll hit her and Marcus where it hurts." Amara stared at the screen, the words blurring as she weighed the cost. Exposing them could tank Marcus's funding, ruin Kayla's ambitions, but it would also drag her pain into the public eye. Her fingers tightened around her glass, the bourbon's burn mirroring the fire in her chest. "Do it," Amara said finally, her voice steady despite the storm within. "But I want more. I want to know every move they've made, every lie they've told." Nia's grin was feral, her fingers already typing. "I've got a contact at TechBit who can dig deeper. Financial records, investor emails. If Kayla's playing dirty, we'll find it." Amara nodded, feeling the shift from victim to strategist. She wasn't just reacting anymore. She was plotting, building a case to dismantle the life Marcus and Kayla thought they could claim. As Nia typed, Amara's mind raced. The condo, the company, her career, they were hers, built with her sweat, her vision. Marcus's arrogance, Kayla's calculated betrayal, they'd underestimated her, assuming she'd crumble. But Amara was done shrinking. She thought of Denise's words, fighting for her worth. The bar's neon lights flickered, reflecting in her eyes, now sharp with purpose. She'd need more than emails and blog posts to win this war. But this was the start. Kayla's ambition, Marcus's empire, they were fragile, built on lies. And lies, Amara knew, could be exposed. Her phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "We need to settle this. Meet me tomorrow." No apology, no remorse, just another demand. Amara's lips pressed into a thin line. He thought he could dictate the terms, push her out. But she was no longer the woman who'd walked into his office with a lunchbox and a smile. She was something else now, something fiercer. As Nia sent the blog post to TechBit, Amara felt the ground shift beneath her. The fight was coming, and she was ready to draw blood. Amara's heels clicked against the polished floor of the Atlanta Convention Center, the hum of the tech conference swirling around her like a storm ready to break. The air buzzed with ambition, startups pitching, investors networking, LED screens flashing, cutting-edge demos. Her navy blazer hugged her frame, a deliberate choice to project power, not pain, as she prepared to speak on a panel about event innovation. Marcus's text from last night, "We need to settle this," echoed in her mind. But she pushed it aside, fueled by the fire of Nia's blog post hitting TechBit that morning. The headline had spread like wildfire. "Startup CEO's Affair Threatens Empire." Comments flooded social media, investors whispering in corners, their glances darting toward her. Amara stood taller, her chin high, ready to reclaim her narrative. Backstage, she adjusted her earpiece, her reflection in a monitor showing a woman unbroken, despite the chaos Marcus and Kayla had unleashed. The blog post had done its work. TechBit's expose detailed Kayla's affair with Marcus, her whispers to investors about being the real brains behind his company. It painted her as unethical, a liability, and Marcus as a CEO teetering on scandal. Amara's phone buzzed with notifications, tweets, DMs, a message from Nia. "Investors are freaking out. Keep shining." She exhaled, steadying herself as the stage manager signaled her cue. This wasn't just a panel, it was her battlefield. The spotlight hit her as she stepped onto the stage, the crowd's murmurs fading into attentive silence. Events aren't just logistics, she began, her voice clear, commanding. They're stories, moments that define a brand. She wove her vision of immersive, tech-driven events, her words sparking nods from the audience. A tech exec in the front row scribbled notes, his eyes bright with interest. Amara felt the rush of control, her expertise undeniable, her presence magnetic. She was no longer Marcus's wife or Kayla's mentor. She was Amara Godwin, a force. The applause when she finished was thunderous, a validation that no one could steal. As she stepped off stage, Kayla appeared, her auburn curls swept back, her tailored dress screaming calculated confidence. The crowd parted, sensing tension. "You're playing dirty, Amara," Kayla hissed, her voice low but venomous, her eyes darting to the investors milling nearby. "That blog post? Low, even for you." Amara's pulse spiked, but she kept her composure, her smile sharp. "Dirty?" she replied, stepping closer, her voice ablade. "You stole my clients, Kayla. You slept with my husband. And now you're whining because the truth is out?" Kayla's jaw tightened, her facade cracking. "You're ruining everything," she snapped. "Marcus's company, my career." "Your career?" Amara cut in, her voice rising just enough to draw eyes. "You built it on my back, Kayla. You learned from me, then stabbed me." A tall man in a suit, Amara recognized him as Victor Chen, a key investor in Marcus's startup, paused nearby, his brow furrowed. Amara seized the moment. "Victor," she said, turning to him, her tone calm but deliberate. "Did Kayla tell you she's been bad-mouthing my company to poach clients? Unethical, don't you think, for a chief of staff?" Victor's eyes narrowed, shifting to Kayla, who paled, her confidence evaporating. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice clipped. Kayla stammered, "It's complicated," but Victor was already turning away, his phone in hand. Amara's heart pounded with triumph as Kayla stood frozen, the crowd's whispers growing louder. She'd turned Kayla's ambush into her own victory, exposing her in front of the one audience that mattered. But the moment was fleeting. Her phone buzzed with another text from Marcus. "Meet me at the office. 6 p.m. No games." The demand reeked of his usual arrogance, but the timing, right after the blog post's fallout, hinted at desperation. Amara tucked her phone away, her mind racing. The conference hall pulsed with energy, but she felt the weight of the next battle looming. Kayla's retreat wasn't the end. Marcus was circling, ready to protect his empire. She slipped into a quiet lounge area, the city's skyline visible through a glass wall, its lights twinkling like stars in a storm. Nia's intel had been right. Kayla's play for a board seat had backfired, and Marcus's investors were rattled. But Amara knew Marcus wouldn't go down easily. He'd built his company on charm and ruthlessness, qualities she'd once admired. Now they were weapons aimed at her. She thought of Denise's draft petition, the threat of a forensic audit. It was a card she hadn't played yet, but the thought of Marcus squirming under scrutiny was a spark in her chest. Amara's reflection in the glass showed a woman transformed, not the one who'd walked into Marcus's office with a lunchbox, but one forging her own path. The blog post had shaken their foundation, but she needed more to topple them. Nia's promise of deeper dirt, financial records, investor emails, lingered in her mind. If Kayla was cozying up to power, there'd be a trail, and Amara would find it. She straightened, her blazer a suit of armor, her eyes fierce. The conference buzzed behind her, a reminder of her own power. Marcus wanted a meeting? Fine. But she'd walk in on her terms, armed with the truth and ready to fight. Amara's resolve hardened as she stepped into the sleek boardroom of Marcus's startup, the polished mahogany table reflecting the city's dusk glow through floor-to-ceiling windows. The air was taut, heavy with the fallout of TechBit's expose and her public dismantling of Kayla at the conference. Marcus's text had summoned her here, but Amara wasn't the broken wife he'd expected weeks ago. Denise flanked her, her tailored suit and steely gaze a quiet promise of destruction. Across the table, Marcus sat, his navy tie loosened, his jaw set, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Kayla perched beside him, her auburn curls pulled tight, her fingers twitching against a leather notebook. The boardroom felt like a coliseum, and Amara was ready to draw blood. Marcus leaned forward, his voice measured, the CEO mask firmly in place. Amara, let's end this cleanly, he said, sliding a folder across the table. Half the condo's value, a small cash settlement. It's generous considering. The word generous grated, a patronizing jab that assumed she'd grovel for scraps. Amara didn't touch the folder. Denise opened it, her eyes scanning the numbers before a sharp laugh escaped her. Generous, she said, her voice cutting like glass. This is an insult. You've funneled joint assets into your company, Marcus. That's fraud, and we've got the receipts. Kayla's eyes darted to Marcus, her composure cracking. You can't prove that, she snapped, but her voice wavered, betraying her fear. Denise slid a thick binder forward, its pages marked with red tabs. Bank transfers, emails, corporate filings, she said coolly. You moved Amara's savings into your startup's accounts, claiming business expenses. We're ready to file for a forensic audit. Your investors will love the headlines. Marcus's hand clenched, his knuckles whitening. Amara felt a surge of satisfaction, watching the man who dismissed her pain squirm under the weight of his own deceit. You're bluffing, Marcus said, but his voice lacked its usual swagger. Amara leaned forward, her eyes locking with his. Try me, she said, her voice low, unyielding. You thought I'd walk away quietly, Marcus. You thought you could erase me from our life, our home, your company. But I'm not the one hiding. She turned to Kayla, whose face was a mask of barely contained panic. And you, Amara continued, her tone icy. You built your career on my mentorship, then stabbed me to climb higher. How's that board seat looking now? Kayla's lips parted, but no words came, her ambition crumbling under scrutiny. Denise tapped the binder, her voice relentless. We're demanding half the condo's value, 20% of your company's equity, and full disclosure of all assets. Amara funded your startup's early days, her money, her sacrifices. She's entitled to it. Marcus's eyes narrowed, a flash of the ruthless negotiator surfacing. 20%? You're delusional. This company's my blood, my vision. Amara's laugh was sharp, bitter. Your vision? I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat while you pitched to investors. I planned your retreats, charmed your clients. That's our blood in this company. Kayla slammed her notebook shut, her voice rising. This is extortion. You're trying to ruin us. Amara met her gaze, unflinching. Ruin you? She said softly. You did that yourselves. 6 months of lies, stealing my clients, my life. This isn't extortion. It's justice. The word hung in the air, heavy with truth. Marcus rubbed his temples, his composure fraying. Amara, be reasonable, he said, his tone almost pleading. A public lawsuit, an audit, it'll tank the company. You'll hurt yourself too. Denise raised an eyebrow. She'll survive. Can you say the same? The room fell silent, the city's hum a distant pulse beyond the glass. Amara saw the cracks in Marcus's armor. His investors were circling, spooked by the blog post, whispering about pulling funds. Kayla's dreams of a board seat were unraveling, her reputation tarnished by her own greed. Amara's heart pounded, not with fear but with power. She'd walked into this fight outnumbered, outmaneuvered. But now the tables had turned. Denise's binder, Nia's expose, her own defiance, they were weapons, and she wielded them with precision. Kayla leaned toward Marcus, her voice a harsh whisper. We can't give her 20%. Fight this. Marcus shot her a look, irritation flashing. Enough, Kayla, he muttered, and Amara caught the tension between them, a fracture in their united front. She seized it. Having second thoughts, Marcus? She asked, her voice calm but pointed. Maybe you're realizing Kayla's ambition isn't worth your empire. Kayla's face flushed, her eyes darting away, and Amara felt a spark of victory. Their alliance was fragile, built on mutual gain, not loyalty. Marcus leaned back, his fingers steepled, his gaze distant. What do you want, Amara? He asked, the fight draining from his voice. To destroy me? To take everything? Amara's eyes burned, but she held his gaze. I want what's mine, she said. The condo, the equity, the respect you both threw away. I'm not here to destroy you, Marcus. I'm here to survive you. The words landed like a blow, and for the first time, Marcus looked at her, not as an obstacle, but as the woman he'd underestimated. Denise closed the binder with a snap, her voice final. You have 48 hours to revise your offer or we file. The audit, the lawsuit, the headlines, they're all ready. She stood, signaling Amara to follow, but Amara lingered, her eyes on Marcus. He looked smaller now, his empire teetering, his arrogance a hollow shell. Kayla stared at the table, her notebook clutched like a lifeline, her dreams slipping away. Amara rose, her movements deliberate, her blazer a shield. She'd come for a fight, and she'd won this round, but the war wasn't over. As she stepped toward the door, Marcus's voice stopped her. Amara, he said, softer now, almost human. I didn't want it to end like this. She turned, her expression unyielding. You ended it 6 months ago, she said. I'm just writing the epilogue. The words echoed as she walked out, Denise at her side, the city's lights sprawling below, a canvas of possibility. The fight had changed her, forged her into something unbreakable. But what would Marcus and Kayla do with their 48 hours? Fold or strike back? Amara's new apartment bathed in the soft glow of morning light, its open layout a canvas of fresh starts, minimalist furniture, vibrant art on the walls, and a desk overflowing with event sketches. 6 months had passed since the boardroom showdown, and the settlement papers, signed under Denise's watchful eye, had granted her half the condo's value and a slice of Marcus's company equity. The money had bought this space, a sanctuary where she rebuilt vibrant visions, turning it into a powerhouse of innovative events. But the true victory wasn't financial. It was the self-respect she'd forged in the fire of betrayal. Amara sipped her coffee, gazing at the skyline, her mind drifting to the email that had arrived yesterday, an invitation from a documentary producer to share her story in a series about women reclaiming their power. The settlement hadn't come easily. Marcus's 48-hour deadline had stretched into a tense negotiation, his lawyers scrambling as investors pulled back, spooked by the looming audit. In the end, he'd caved, his empire wobbling but intact, while Kayla's ambitions shattered. Amara had heard through Nia that Kayla was fired, her reputation in tatters after clients fled and investors shunned her. Marcus's company limped on, downsized, his CEO's shine dulled by the scandal. Amara felt no glee, only a quiet closure, the weight of their betrayal lifting like fog. She set her mug down, opening her laptop to review a new contract for Luxware's expanded show. Mrs. Thompson's faith had paid off. The event was a hit that drew more clients her way. Vibrant visions thrived, her creativity unchained from the shadows of doubt Kayla had sown. Amara's phone buzzed, a message from Jamal, the graphic artist she'd met at a networking event 3 months ago. Can't wait for dinner tonight, it read with a heart emoji. Jamal's easy laugh, his admiration for her resilience, had sparked something new, a connection built on honesty, not illusion. Their dates were slow, deliberate, a far cry from the rushed passion she'd known with Marcus. The documentary email stared back at her, the producer praising her as the woman who wouldn't fade. Amara hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Sharing her story publicly meant reliving the pain. The kiss in Marcus's office, Kayla's smirk, the emails that exposed their deceit. But it also meant inspiring others, showing that betrayal didn't define you. She typed a reply, I'm in, let's talk. As she hit send, a sense of empowerment washed over her. This wasn't revenge. It was reckoning, turning her scars into strength. Nia called later, her voice buzzing with excitement. Heard about Kayla? She's job hunting in obscurity, blacklisted in tech circles. Amara leaned against the window, the city sprawling below. And Marcus, she asked, curiosity edging her tone. Nia chuckled. His startup lost another investor. He's pivoting to consulting. Far from the spotlight. Amara nodded, a faint smile crossing her lips. Their downfall was a consequence of their choices, not her orchestration. She'd fought for fairness, not destruction, and in winning, she'd freed herself. The afternoon sun warmed her as she prepared for her date with Jamal. He arrived at her door with a bouquet of sunflowers, his dark eyes lighting up at her sight. "You look incredible," he said, his voice warm, genuine. Over dinner at a cozy bistro, they talked about her events, his designs, the scars of past heartbreaks. Jamal listened, his hand brushing hers, his admiration clear. "Your story's inspiring, Amara," he said softly. "Not many people rise like you did." She squeezed his hand, feeling a spark of possibility, a future untainted by lies. Back home, Amara sat on her balcony, the night air cool against her skin. The city lights twinkled, a reminder of the life she'd rebuilt. Marcus and Kayla were echoes now, their betrayal a chapter closed. She thought of the documentary, the women it would reach, and the message of resilience. Her journey hadn't been about vengeance, but about clarity. Seeing her worth, demanding it, claiming it. The pain had forged her, but it didn't define her. Amara Godwin was more than a betrayed wife. She was a creator, a survivor, a force. As stars dotted the sky, Amara's mind wandered to the woman she'd been that fateful day, walking into Marcus's office with a lunchbox and trust. That woman was gone, replaced by one who stood tall, unbowed. The reckoning wasn't just for her. It was for every woman pushed aside, underestimated. She'd chosen to fight, to rise, and in doing so, she'd found herself. Jamal's text lit her phone. "Tonight was amazing. See you soon?" She smiled, typing back, her heart light. The future stretched ahead, bright and hers alone. As Amara's story fades, her journey reminds us, betrayal can break you, but it can also forge you stronger. She turned pain into power, reclaiming her life with unyielding courage. What's your reckoning? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear your stories of resilience. Thank you for listening, for joining us in this tale of triumph. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more gripping dramas that spark the soul. Your support fuels our channel, and we're grateful for every one of you. Until next time, keep fighting for your worth.